Hi everyone. I'm filming this about a week early because I'm principally going to be speaking here about the second half of April and the new moon we have coming up in Taurus on the 27th. But I wanted to film this early, partly because I wanted to add some things to the full moon in Libra, which is coming up in this coming weekend, so 12th, 13th. And also there's quite a significant uptick in energy mid-month, and I wanted to catch that as well. Of course, you don't have to listen to this until after the full moon in Libra, but I wanted it to be available for you. And also I wanted to say a warm welcome to any new subscribers who come to the channel as well. Hope you enjoy all of the varied offerings that we have here. So let me just recap a little on the full moon in Libra. I'll put the video that I did about that, and I covered a lot of ground in that video, but just a couple of things I wanted to add to really. So let me see if we can get this chart up again. Yes, in addition to the things I was saying, I think what is really very strong at the moment for many people, and they're going to come into full light this weekend, is relationships. Libra is par excellence the sign of relationships. It's ruled by Venus. Venus in many ways is very strong here, as I mentioned in the previous video. It's in its exaltation in Pisces, and it's also stationary at the time of this full moon, which is very early hours on the 13th in the UK, late on the 12th in the US. But very much about relationships and balance and fairness and harmony in relationships. And this full moon is shining a light on those issues. You know, if you've given away your power too much to the other, be that a friend or a romantic partner, that's very much the kind of the Aries Libra axis, me versus we. And the other thing I've mentioned in a previous update was, I'll stick to relationships for the moment and then go back to the other issue, but Venus is very strong here, but it's also conjunct Saturn. Now, when Venus is conjunct Saturn, that can test relationships, personal relationships of all kinds. And if a relationship is weak, it will tend to pass away at this time because you're testing it, you're seeing the relationship not in any idealistic sense or romantic sense, you're seeing it very pragmatically and realistically. Saturn always acts as a reality check. However, if the relationship is strong, it will be consolidated at this time, because not only is it working romantically, let's say if it's a romantic relationship, but also you can see the longevity of it and the kind of groundedness of it, if you like. I actually got married on a Saturn-Venus conjunction. It can act as a consolidating factor in a relationship which is strong at that time. The other way this operates is that this is also about money. Venus is about money, it's about wealth, it's about currencies. Also Mercury has been, they've both been retrograde. In fact, they still are. So I'm making this video on the 7th. Mercury goes direct today on the 7th. Venus goes direct on the 12th. But up to now, they have both been retrograde. And they've been running very close together and conjunct Saturn. So because Venus, as I say, is about wealth, currencies, etc., and Mercury is about trade and tariffs. In an earlier update, I mentioned, because of the conjunction to Saturn, which is about limitation, and also the fact that they are sextile to Uranus in Taurus, ruled by Venus, again, currencies, wealth, etc., stock markets, that there could be some turbulence in stock markets as a result of tariffs around trade. That is most certainly what has happened. I mean, the markets have absolutely tanked. Today, They were way down in Asia, but they've been down in US, UK, and EU as well, right across the board, really. I think going forwards, it will take a bit of time because Venus is conjunct Saturn all of this month, and limited wealth, limited money is what it actually means. And so eventually I think they will stabilize, but it is turbulent at this time. The other thing I wanted to mention is I'd said in the previous update that on the 6th, the 5th and the 6th, that the moon was going to be conjunct Mars. Mars is still out of bounds until today, the 7th. It's been running out of bounds for some time. And that is likely because they are both square to Eris to bring up a lot of revolutionary behavior on the part of the people. And it was on the 5th, the moon was exactly conjunct Mars on the 5th of April. And that's when we saw some massive protests in America. It was very strong. And of course, Mars and the moon at that time were exactly opposing the US Pluto planet, which is very revolutionary, in the US birth chart. 4th of July, 1776, Philadelphia, 10 past 5 in the afternoon. So that was a very literal eruption. We talked a lot about the symbolism of Eris, being very a feisty street fighter. So luckily the protests were very calm, but nevertheless, I think that symbolism really delivered. So those are some of the things that I just wanted really to bring forwards. And we have for quite a long time now, looking forwards into 2025, this is a very tight sextile here between Saturn and Uranus. And this is about really starting to bring new financial systems forwards into the public arena. And, there's been a lot of discussion about cryptocurrencies either being centralized. This is all under the auspices, really, of Uranus in Taurus, radical new digital shifts and changes, Taurus, money, currency, etc., sextile to Venus here. We are very well aware of the centralized efforts, but there are also many decentralized opportunities with cryptocurrencies as well. So this is really partly about the new and the old, how the new financial systems are being formed, but the sextile brings in opportunities. So it's really looking for opportunities of how do we build the new into the old structures. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is linked not only to Uranus in Taurus, it doesn't begin to move out of Taurus until July the 7th, it moves into Gemini. Taurus is very linked to agriculture. And this can be new systems, etc., in agriculture. It can be disruptions in agriculture. And we also have at this time, and again, I mentioned at the last video, this square between Jupiter and Ceres. Ceres is the goddess of harvests and grains. And Jupiter, in some ways, enlarging that as an issue. And so together with Uranus in Taurus, for instance, in the UK, we are having quite a battle between the government and the UK farmers because the government has brought in some very punitive inheritance taxes against farms, and farmers have been protesting very strongly. But what they've now decided to do is to stop sending their wheat to the wheat mills, which is going to cause bread shortages, to try and put more pressure on the government. And that is such a clear expression of Jupiter blowing it up in the news, in the media, social media, Gemini, around grains and harvests. So clear. The other thing I wanted to mention at this time, because here we have a lot of water, we have a lot of fire. The fire is going to increase on the 18th as Mars moves into Leo. But I think we are going to continue, as I've said several times this year already, to see extreme weather. I'm going to do a separate, I've already got a video on Neptune in moving into Aries. I'll put that video below. I'm going to do another one in before 24th of May when Saturn also moves into Aries, but it is already in a conjunction here. And Saturn, Neptune hard aspects tend to be associated with drought because it's literally limited water. So we could see some very hot weather this year and some drought in various areas. I think that was the case going back to 1989 when we had that last conjunction as well. But I'll do a whole separate video on that. But we are also, remember, birthing a whole new episode for humanity with unconditional love here. That's part of this Venus, Saturn, North Node, Mercury, Neptune, massive stellium, that we are birthing it practically, strategically for the long term, and we're birthing it with unconditional love. So let us now move forwards a little bit into the month. I'm going to stop sharing the full moon in Libra chart because that's coming up this weekend. And a couple of other things to say before we move into the new moon in Taurus. On the 18th, as I say, Mars moves out of Cancer, out of moody, protective Cancer into Leo. But that is a lot of fire. We're likely to see more drama. It's a very dramatic sign. Leo and Mars operates very well in Leo. There's a kind of exuberance and flamboyance. But because we have quite a few planets in Aries as well, we have a lot of fire at that time. And even by the 20th of the month, we have a very strong T-square with the Sun at 1 degree of Taurus, squaring Mars at 1 degree of Leo, and Mars is square to the Moon at 1 degree of Aquarius, and the Moon is conjunct Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius. So the Sun and Mars and Moon Pluto in conjunction are actually forming a T-square. And that's a very strong fixed T-square. This is intense energy. The people are feeling very intense at this time. They're feeling intense probably about issues of freedom, Aquarius, human rights, civil rights, all of those Aquarian issues. This is quite combative and combustible energy with Mars in Leo. So really try and stay calm, stay peaceful. Always take a breath before you react. This is very super reactive energy at this time. So that's on the 20th. So I'm really highlighting that particular day because, there is so much evidence of how our individual efforts and particularly our collective efforts, when we come together in peace and gratitude and calmness and mindfulness, we actually change the whole collective energy and the collective trajectory. We change our collective timeline from something which is much more warlike and aggressive to something which is much calmer. So recognize the power we have as co-creators. We are changing this energy. We're changing our own energy in every millisecond, in every moment. But when we come together with intention, as we do every night in the free 15-minute meditations, I'll put the link for that below so you know what that's about. It's all for free, no links, no Zoom, no tech of any kind. We are actually, every moment we're doing that, we are changing our future collective timeline to be something much more peaceful. Know the part we play in this. I've just had a wonderful conversation with my friend Zach, an aspect of Dwal Cool channeled by my good friend Janet Trelaw, who was saying exactly that. So step into that sense of inner power that we have. So now let me move on to talking about the new moon in Taurus. It's actually a supermoon, and it is the closest new supermoon of the year. It's just under 222,000 miles, I think, to the center of the Earth from the moon. They're close. They're the full moon. Some of the super full moons are closer, but this is the closest new supermoon, and so therefore it has a stronger pull on the tectonic plates, and seismic activity tends to come at new moons, full moons. Obviously eclipses are even stronger, but when the moon is closer in its orbit to the Earth, that has greater seismic potential too. And when we look at the geometry that we see at this new supermoon, it's very strong. So let us take a look. I'll share the screen here. So this is happening on the 27th of April. And just before that, on the 26th, we have the third exact opposition between Mars and Pluto. The first exact opposition between them was just 2 days before the US election in early November last year. Then the second exact opposition was around about the time, it was the 3rd of January, and the fires in LA that were so tragic became really big by the 7th. But really that Mars-Pluto opposition was running through the first half of January. This is going to be the third one, and Mars, as I say, has already moved into Leo on the 18th. So there's a feeling of brute force very often here. It's very strong. It's power plays. It can be assertions of power in the world. It can be, as I've often spoken about before, individual power around issues of sovereignty, Leo, against state power. It can work in that way. It is best if we really try and integrate this in terms of being in divine flow with the divine will, aligning our individual will with divine will. But at the lower level of expression, this can be quite forceful. Now, Mars has also, as we know, been square to Eris for quite some time. It has moved off that square, but nevertheless, it is now forming a fixed grand cross with this new moon. This is really strong energy. Now, the good thing, the wonderful thing about Taurus is that it's linked to the Earth. I think it has the greatest potential of being tuned into our Earth. So think of grounding, bare feet on the grass, just breathing in Earth's energy. This can decompress any kind of fritzed mental energy that you have. It actually allows the healing ions of the Earth to be taken up by your body very quickly. And if you don't know about grounding, you can go to groundology.com or groundology.co.uk for all the science of this. The Earth is incredibly healing if we have our bare feet on the grass on the Earth. And Taurus can really, it's a sign that is the best for helping us find stillness, tuning into the natural rhythms of the Earth. And the more you can do that, the better. You know, I mentioned in a video I was just filming earlier today how I'm really getting this sense of the magical and the elemental in nature now on my morning walks. It's very beautiful. Of course, Taurus can also bring up issues around agriculture and food production. And I just mentioned, I was talking about this square between Jupiter and Ceres in terms of issues that are coming up, certainly in the UK, around agriculture. This new moon is actually in a semi-square to Ceres, 45-degree angle to Ceres. So again, it's bringing up issues around agriculture and food production. Now, that may be as a result of extreme weather. Here we have the potential for flooding, and we also have a lot of fiery energy. We have two planets here in Aries, Neptune, Mercury. We also have Chiron and Eris in Aries, and we also have now Mars in Leo, another fire sign with Varuna. So let us start to look at this fixed grand cross, because it's very, very strong. Whenever you have a grand cross, it really heightens the planets involved in that grand cross. And when it's fixed, it creates quite a lot of tension. If you have this in your chart, it can bring great determination, willpower, tenacity. Actually, even any aspect between Mars and Pluto in your natal chart can do that. But my goodness, it's strong, and it can create a kind of build-up of tension that needs to find somewhere to go, because it's locked into that grand cross, if you like. So this is the new moon, which is very close to the Earth in its orbit, remember, square to Mars, opposing Pluto. This is, again, as I was just saying about the day before, about the 20th as well, the 20th has this aspect between Sun, Moon, Mars and Pluto. Here it's rearranged to still be Sun, Moon, Mars and Pluto, but combustible and combative. And Varuna here, conjunct Mars. Varuna is the Hindu god of wisdom and divine knowledge and cosmic forces. So again, a suggestion that we might be seeing some very strong weather at this time. Varuna is concerned, it's a dwarf planet concerned with justice, spiritual leadership, having a strong moral compass. I mean, Leo as a sign is all about leadership and truth. Aquarius as a sign is about truth. So I think we could see here again a lot of truth coming to light. I think that's just going to roll on, frankly, all the way through 2025 and ongoing. But it could be that also Varuna is very linked to the oceans, linked to rainfall and seasons in its mythology. And I don't know if you're aware, I'll try and find the link if I can. There was a massive iceberg the size of Chicago, apparently, that broke off from the whole ice sheet covering the Antarctic. And as it broke away, it revealed a whole new ecosystem, a beautiful ecosystem with new creatures, new sea plants, absolutely beautiful, that had been growing underneath this iceberg, the ice sheet of the Antarctic. So just as I've been expecting, that was really suggested by the astrology, we are going to see so much new life coming from the sea. And this, of course, is echoing the mythology of Sedna. I haven't put Sedna in here, but Sedna is at 1 degree of Gemini, so Pluto is trining it, and Homer is in a quincunx to Sedna at 1 degree. But partly this is Homer as well. This is regeneration, new life being formed. And so I think we're going to see more and more discoveries coming from the sea, the depths of the sea, the oceans, what is down there. Now that could be in terms of buildings, cities. This is Saturn in Pisces, literally ancient cities, ancient structures coming up from the sea, but it also is the mythology of Sedna and Homer. So this is about, this square I've talked about before, this is about transformation, regeneration. We are becoming a new biology. That's becoming really clear in all the recent conversations I've been having with people. It's come from so many people. Richard Rudd talks about the new human. Also, Lee Harris in his brilliant new book is talking about the future human. I've just been having some very inspiring conversations with other people recently. Kelly Kolodny, the angel lady, about this new biology which we're forming. Zach, also aspect of Dwal Kul, has been talking about this new biology. I mean, pretty much every conversation I'm having that is not purely an astrological update is talking about this new biology that we are forming. We are now in the gestation period. We've gone through this massive energetic portal, and we are now in a new episode for humanity, a new era, a gestation period, and we are forming new biology, which is immensely exciting. As part of this fixed ground cross, we also have Black Moon Lilith at 2 degrees of Scorpio. Remember the myth of Black Moon Lilith. She wouldn't submit to Adam in the Garden of Eden. So as a result of that, she was thrown out of the Garden of Eden. She is very similar to Eris in her mythology. She is one that breaks the rules. She is strong in her truth, strong in her sovereignty. She will not comply. She will not submit. She stands tall in her truth. And so we have some very strong both symbolism and geometry coming to the fore here. So potentially I see this as some extreme weather. I see this as potentially some seismic activity. That could be literal, ecological, environmental. It may also be political. And another very big likely theme here, of course, is financial, because this is a new moon in Taurus. Taurus is very connected to currencies, wealth, banking, money in general, and it's very much part of this fixed grand cross. And so it is likely that there's going to be continued fallout from the tariff and trade issues earlier in the month, particularly because Venus is still conjunct to Saturn here, and also in sextile to Uranus. So that what this is positively suggesting is that a new stepping stone will be made in terms of development of new financial systems in some way, or new currencies. Now, inevitably, there will be pressure from centralized bodies to make sure that is held by governments. However, Aquarius, in its best expression, is about decentralization, and Black Moon Lilith tends to break the rules and go her own way, and she's very much involved in this fixed grand cross too. So you're going to have energy pulling in two very different directions, centralization versus decentralization. But I think the financial side could be very big here. And the other reason I say that is because the signs of Taurus and Leo are both associated with gold. So we could have something coming up around gold here. It's interesting that we know that Saturn is already in its operationally in its conjunction to Neptune. It will be exact by degree in July, and then exact by minute on February 20th, 2026. And that's a 36 repeating year conjunction. But if we look at another hard aspect between Saturn and Neptune, and that was in 1971, and that was an opposition, that was the year that the US left the gold standard. Also, in the last couple of days, the German government have insisted that the US give back the German gold reserves from the Federal Reserve, the US Federal Reserve. So, and that's just literally been in the last couple of days. So it'll be interesting to see what happens about that. But potentially themes around gold could come up, and perhaps even another step towards a gold-backed currency that many people have spoken about. We will wait and see, but definitely that financial theme is one that is a very strong probability at this time. And also financial secrets, with Pluto being part of the picture to financial secrets long hidden. There could be issues coming up around celebrities. That's very much ruled by Leo. Children are also related to the sign of Leo. So we'll see what comes up about that. But Pluto can be just this whole thing about deeply buried secrets, long buried secrets. That's, I think, around that rather murky side, that's going to get stronger in May, early May. So I'll talk about that next time around. But this can also suggest Pluto in Aquarius. It can suggest wealthy individuals making their wealth via technology. And of course, they are very obvious to us. They're household names. Control by technology is another possible theme here. So that's why it is very important to insist on our freedom, our human rights, our civil rights, and those strong movements will continue over the next couple of years. Now, the other thing to say is that could be part of this picture is there is increasing concern about the electrification, Aquarius, of the Earth, Taurus. And I'm going to be speaking to Stephen Burns, the geophysicist, next week. And he has released a video today, I think, and he's been talking about it quite often recently, about this unprecedented level of the electrification of the Earth via all the many satellites that are up there orbiting in space. They are metallic, they are heavy, they therefore conduct electricity very easily. Not all of them burn up in the sun. A lot of them just continue to orbit as junk. Nobody actually knows the effect that they are having on the Earth and all of its sentient life. But certainly as they kind of crumble to dust and disintegrate, that's not good. That's not good. So a lot of the out there suggested by Aquarius, and in particular the electrification, is impacting the Earth. And so I think we may see more coming up about that too. And that also, as I understand it, increases all of this is an unstable picture. Actually, this whole fixed grand cross is an unstable picture because the tension has to blow, the tension has to go somewhere. But there's a feeling of a build-up with fixity. And, if you've got a mutable grand square, it's flexible. If you have a cardinal grand square, it can initiate, but a fixed grand square tends to get very entrenched. Now, that could be entrenched views between people, but it could be a buildup of energy in the Earth and then the release of the seismic activity as well. So what I'd also like to bring up at this time, and this is not in any way a political opinion or really any political statement of any kind. So if there are any derogatory comments or disrespectful comments to anybody in any direction under this video, they will be very quickly deleted, because that doesn't help any of us, that level of polarization. But just to say that this new moon in Taurus has an echo of last July, because on the 13th of July last year, there was an assassination attempt on the US president. At that point, transiting Mars was at 2451 of Taurus, conjunct Uranus at 2614 of Taurus. They were both conjunct the US president's midheaven, which is at 26 of Taurus. And sorry, correction, it's at 24 of Taurus, but they were very tightly conjunct. So the midheaven is your visibility, your reputation, your status, your career very often, but it's also your visibility in the world. Uranus is sudden, unexpected, radical events. Mars is often linked to guns and violence and attacks. And so that conjunction on the US president's midheaven was also square to his Mars in the 12th house of health. The 12th house can often be called critical health as well. At this new moon, we have some parallels to that. We have Uranus now transiting Uranus at 2608 of Taurus, that is again conjunct his midheaven, and also conjunct the fixed star Algol, linked to losing your head. It is also square to, again, the US President's natal Mars in the 12th house, linked to health issues. It's also square to his descendant axis, which also is linked to health issues. So I'm not predicting anything here, but I am suggesting this is a period of challenge. Really, from now on into May, this is a period of challenge for the US president. And really, I'd like to go on now to just talk about the astrocartography. And remember, the astrocartography is if we look at where the planets at the time of this new moon in Taurus become angular, therefore become more powerful. And if we look across the globe, the new moon is angular running north-south over Kazakhstan and the countries south of that, Afghanistan, Pakistan. The new moon is also angular running down through Western Canada, kind of Alberta area, and California. Uranus is conjunct the midheaven, so that's suggested to link to governments running through Canada, kind of middle of Canada, running through the US, through Texas, down to Mexico City. It's also conjunct, Uranus is conjunct the IC, the land, the home base, running through India, Nepal, and China. So there could be something eruptive in those geographies. The Mars-Pluto opposition becomes angular just west of Africa, in the mid-Atlantic. And of course, we've recently had some seismic activity in the mid-Atlantic. And also that runs the Mars-Pluto opposition is angular, just running east of Australia. So we'll see if any of those geographies come to the fore round about the time of this new supermoon in Taurus. But really, I just want to stop sharing here. And I also want to say that although this is a very destabilizing time, we've seen massive destabilization in the financial markets right across the world. That has hit currencies, cryptocurrencies. It has been huge and caused all kinds of anxiety and fear amongst people. Just to say, this is exactly the kind of thing that the astrology was expecting. And I've been talking about this for at least the last 18 months, saying we are going to see the breakdown of old structures and that they are going to be financial, political, legal, medical, right across the board. We are going to see the breakdown of old structures. And so, although when we're in it, it can feel very anxiety and fear-provoking, but astrologers would be surprised if they weren't seeing this kind of thing, because the breakdown has to happen before the breakthrough can fully become birthed. It has to happen. So we are going to see this kind of destabilization in many areas of life. So again, just know that. Have a protocol, have a default method, dropping into your heart, dropping into your breath, listening to birdsong, candle gazing, meditating, listening to sacred music, bare feet on the grass, all the things I've talked about ad infinitum. Have a default method that when you feel stressed by, oh my goodness, the world is becoming more unstable, you have a method of finding peace and calm. That is your state of being is the most important thing by a mile to focus on at this time, because everything comes from that. You create your individual reality, you help to create the collective reality by your state of being. The more you can be in love, gratitude, bliss, peace, stillness, the better life will be. And to a large extent, you'll be kind of bubble wrapped from the worst excesses of what we're going to see in terms of destabilization. But we will see that this year. It is not going to be a completely ice rink smooth ride. There will be turbulence. And I think it isn't just me that has been saying that. It's many, many other people have been talking about that. And so, really, I'd just like to end with a quote with one of my heroes, Buckminster Fuller, who was a great inventor, an architect, and wonderful man, philosopher, really, visionary. And he said, "We are called to be the architects of the future, not its victims." So do remember this as we go through these times. Create, 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 and have that as your focus, that you are beaming out the frequency that you want to see more of in your reality, not that you want to see less of in your reality. And move beyond victimhood into co-creation and powerful sovereignty. So I hope that's helped you, and other videos to come that are very different as well. I'm a busy bee this month. Take good care. Much love. Thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.